Hello and welcome to the World's End. Raise a glass if you got one. Oh, you did the thing without me even saying it, so good for you.
Well, I've got a bit of a tickle in my throat today. It's not COVID related. It's one of those annoyances of getting old, I guess, you know.
Something in the air because 'tis the season for
Yeah.
sickness and allergies.
Yeah, whatever. Insert whatever type of sickness that the winter brings, but it's not any of that. It's just, you know,
Yeah, it's not down
just
with the
just
sickness, but we're going in
yeah.
another direction here.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're
So,
we're we're going down the Golden Mile, talking
right.
about
Talking about The World's End, the last in the Cornetto trilogy. I think
the
it's Cornetto. I think that's
so-called
what it's
Cornetto trilogy. Yeah.
yeah,
Which the only
English dessert.
significance being this ice cream sandwich that's
Yeah.
a prop in
I
one of
think
these.
I think it's like the same thing as a drumstick that we have here is what that is over there
Mm-hmm.
across the pond, so to speak. But it's the same difference, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Where
so World's End.
I know where it was in Hot Fuzz. Now I know where it was in Shaun of the Dead. Obviously here it's like towards the end, like it's gone from the whole movie and it just blows up on the fence and it's like,
Yeah,
where was it in Hot Fuzz?
they kept going into that uh convenience store, the
Yeah.
little like hole in the wall,
Okay.
and that's what they kept buying, like stuff to drink and the cornettos, you
Okay.
know.
All right.
So
I have to pay more attention next time I watch Hot Fuzz. Um, I really enjoyed this time. I've seen it before, and I don't think I don't know, like it was just kind of there. Um, I didn't really know what to think of it
what is this then or now? I
then.
just think it okay. What are your thoughts now?
I like it.
Is it still just
I
there?
really like
Oh,
it.
okay.
Yeah, I think I finally found enough time and perspective to be like, oh, okay, this is why this is really good. And I don't
Do you
know why it
remember your
just flew over my head the other times, but
oh, okay.
I
Oh,
don't
I was
think it
gonna
did this
ask you
time.
like why if you remember like what it was that you didn't like, that it didn't hit you. Only because I feel like the humor between all three of them are the same. I think Shaun of the Dead is actually the most different of them all. I think it's a little bit more slapstick, and this is a little bit more clever. Like Hot Fuzz and World's End are more clever with their humor.
Hmm.
You know,
Well,
that's the only
and
differences that I can see.
yeah, and yet I see this
Other,
as the silliest of all of them, but the writing really ties it together in a way where I think I really understand the trilogy now. And I don't know why
okay,
it didn't
didn't hit you when it
gel
first came
or,
out.
it's not that I didn't like it. It's not that I wasn't entertained. Never said that. I was just kind of like, okay, this is a movie. The world ended. I don't know. It's just, maybe I was just not in a receptive mind state when I saw it the other time. But
I'm gonna
I,
interject in saying like it's a movie that's there is like what I would consider like a pretty negative comment because I've said that about movies. Like it's there and it exists. It's almost like it exists, but it wasted my time.
well,
So
that's whatever weight you're putting on it. Whereas I really have to dislike a movie to get to a point where it's like I walk out and it's not just like, yeah, okay, it's but that's just kind of a different weight that we put on our own particular viewing experiences. So, um,
well, then I would argue that most of the movies that you see are average movies. Then you know what I mean? Because it's like you've said that about like a lot of movies,
yeah, sure,
and like it. I don't know. Like if I see a movie and that's my reaction. It's that it didn't do anything special. It wasn't particularly good, and there wasn't anything to take away from it. That's to me like when you say like it exists. That's the like kind of like cereal, where it's kind of good, right?
yeah,
But it's
it's
pretty
not bad.
bland. Yeah, but it's not good
Yeah, but
either.
you take that to mean it's a bad thing. So,
Yeah, of course.
I think that's a glass half full, glass half empty kind of debate there. So maybe we can tear into
I'm
that a
not
little bit so we don't drag this opening out.
sure.
We got a whole episode to get into this and savage my opinions and find find ways
Well,
to
I'm
to
just
sink
saying,
this boat.
like, I'm just saying that, like, I think it's reasonable that when you say it's a movie that exists, most people would take that as a negative aspect, a negative response to what you saw. I think that's fair.
I think it's pretty neutral, but you take that
I
the
don't think it's
negative.
neutral.
I do feel
I
like
don't,
it's neutral.
yeah, okay. Well, we'll figure that out, I guess. Because yeah, that to me that's negative. You know, it's a movie that exists. It's like, thanks for trying. You tried to make a movie, but
Mm-hmm. I got a couple things news wise, and you might be interested in at least one of them. I guess Black Adam is projected to come up about $100 million short of breaking even.
okay.
So
Like, so
that's
what does that mean?
more than the entire budget of Batgirl, which they didn't release that movie. But
I'm okay. Wait, what is I don't understand what you're describing. So it's failed, but what does that have to do with Batgirl?
yeah, well, so the movie that they didn't release, they released a movie that's expected to lose more money than the entire budget of the movie that they didn't release. Just to put that into perspective, right? So it has nothing to do with Batgirl. It's just the fact that we're not going to put that movie out, but we're going to put this other movie out that we expect to do better. Still winds up losing more money than that entire movie cost. Now, that's maybe a little bit of an unfair comparison because they never got around to the advertising budget for that. At least I don't think so. So that's probably not figured into that $90 million budget. But DC's really got some problems because that was considered to be like kind of the restart of the whole DCEU kind of fresh slate. Didn't really have
Yeah.
anything to do with the Justice League there, but yeah, Cavill was in it as Superman again. I didn't see it. I didn't care.
Well, one of the things, I'm, this is speculation, but DC has a pretty good track record of not producing great superhero movies. Maybe that's just caught up to them. You know, I think, like, if you look at Terminator, that's a really hard sell with people to
Mm-hmm,
make a new Terminator movie because there's been quite a few stinkers in there, right?
mm-hmm.
So I think Dark Fate was like a really good start to a new franchise or a new series of Terminator movies, but just no one saw it. You know, that ship had sailed. Maybe that's one of the reasons why DC is having problems selling this to people is that they're kind of exhausted. You know, fans are exhausted of the types of DC movies that are coming out,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe that's starting to reflect on their box office. You know,
Yeah,
it's possible.
probably. I know it didn't even perform anywhere close to Marvel's lowest grossing movie of last year, which was Thor: Love and Thunder, which was still successful, and that's a marquee character. Um, but yeah, that's rough. So in better news, you'll like this. The sequel to Ghostbusters Afterlife is expected to come out next December, so December 2023. Paul Rudd's coming
Okay.
back. Wolf Finhard from Stranger Things, Carrie Coon, and I guess they're going to move to the location to New York. So,
Well, I'm happy about that. It seemed like, I mean, spoiler alert, if no one's seen Ghostbusters by this point, it kind of ends with it's like, oh, is Ernie Hudson's character, Winston, is he going to take the mantle and kind of like franchise Ghostbusters out? Because he's back in the old fire department back in New York City. He's a billionaire by the end of the movie. And it seems like that's the direction. Now it seems like that's actually going to happen. you
Mm-hmm.
know? So, and I think that'd be awesome, because Winston's one of my favorite characters, and I think he needs his Ghostbusters time in the spotlight, so to speak.
Yeah.
Really make a story with him in maybe not the main character, but one of the central focuses of the movie. I think would be awesome. You know,
Yeah. He's definitely got the energy for it. He's always been, really engaging with the fan base or like at different events or whatever. And you'll see him at like City Hall in San Francisco doing Ghostbusters related celebrity appearances and things. And yeah, that's cool. I'm just excited because it feels like just last year, because it was just last year, that the last one came out, and then they're already following up on that and striking while the iron's hot. So I'm glad to see that. And
my my
it's
one worry is that Jason Reitman is not returning as the director.
no,
And I think he's going to be an executive producer, but
he's co-writing it as
like,
well, and
well,
he did
Spielberg
handpick the
was the
director to this
executive
one.
producer of Jurassic Park 3, so
I well,
just
he
giving an example
he's
of like the right
co-writer.
people in the right spot.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's
But
he's
I'm saying, like, hold on. I'm saying, like, even having the right people in the right spot, you can still have room for it being a failure. So,
Oh yeah, I mean, just like with Black Adam there. I mean, even The Rock can strike out. No one's saying that. Um, I am glad though that it's not going to be like another 5 years or 6, 7 years before. It's like, no, this was the start of a new thing, and this is something people can get behind while they're excited about it. So let's keep going.
right.
So that's cool. So I just
More Ghostbusters is always a good thing.
I saw that today, and really happy to see that. So that's pretty hot off
It's
the
good
presses
news.
there. Do we have an appointment with Doctor Ink?
I,
Doctor Ink.
I feel like you're making a joke.
That's from the movie. We've
I
got
don't
an
remember
appointment
it.
with Doctor Ink.
Unfortunately, I don't remember that.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing it's a name of a bar.
No, it's right in the
'Cause
beginning where he's going around where Gary King's just being like super manipulative in all the different ways that he used to be
You mean like his
to his
mother dying?
friends. Yeah.
like, like that kind of manipulation,
That very
you
kind of
know?
manipulation, yeah.
Yeah, this is in the rare occurrence where it's like, out of all the trilogies, I don't like this character the most. And it's like, we should like him.
He's
But he's so slimy.
he's kind of the
Like,
villain. I
yeah,
mean, really, when you get down to it,
yeah, he kind of sucks.
until
you
he
know?
isn't, and there's this broader conspiracy.
Yeah, yeah.
Now let's unpack that then. Why do you feel like? I mean, yeah, he's slimy, but he does kind of have that boyish charm where he just wants to have a good time and
Well,
get the
it's
guys back together.
right. Like having that camaraderie to get people together, uh, to kind of relive the glory days, so to speak. I don't think that's necessarily bad or make someone slimy. You know, I'm sure you've experienced this when you meet up with like some high school friends. There's this tendency to want to relive those days again. It's kind of one of the reasons why I've like not hung out with so many high schoolers that I knew.
Hmm.
I should hold on. I'm going to clarify people I knew from high school. I'm not currently hanging out
With
with
high
high
school
schoolers.
kids.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Just so we're all on the same page.
Yeah.
Not a 40-year-old hanging out with 18-year-olds, now currently. But there's this I guess proclivity to talk about the past, right? And it's fun for a little bit, but it does get to a certain point where it's old. It's literally old and figuratively
you
tiring,
you find out really quick the people whose lives have peaked, because when you do hang out with people of that group, people are really quick to fall back into like old tropes, right? and then you
Mm-hmm.
start talking about the glory days and whatnot. But that's all you have in common, and then you start to figure out like who's never moved on,
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
and
What you just said is the reason why it's hard for me to like hang out with certain circles from those days, because I feel like my best times are always in front of me, right? I don't ever really like to go back and like think of those other times, because it's like it should, for me, at least my attitude allows me to believe that the better things are always in front of me, you know?
mhm,
Uh but Yeah, so going back, like those things aren't necessarily bad. Maybe not something you want to relive, but they're not bad. But what is bad is how the manipulation that Gary King uses to get everyone back, you know?
mhm,
Um and the interesting thing is like, even though like you come to find out that the reason why he was doing this manipulation was because of like the dire straits that he was in and how depressed he was that his life didn't turn out the way that it did, or that it didn't turn out how he thought it would. Uh, but that manipulation is terrible. And that's why, like, like convincing someone to come on this drinking uh, bar crawl was to use the death of his mother, which she didn't die, you know? Like, at that time, she wasn't dead yet, And it's like, "Well, hey, hold on just a minute." Like, you can't go around doing that and expect not to have that come out eventually, and, I just think it's a scummy thing to do, you know?
well, I
So
mean,
and
even worse is that that character, the Nick Frost character, quit drinking because Gary let him down so far. Because you find out that they were in a car crash, and
Right,
that's the point where their lives went in completely different directions. But this is what he
right.
uses. Like that's how he manipulates him into getting him on this bar crawl. Yeah. No, I mean, like he's the epitome of the guy who hasn't moved on. He's wearing the same clothes. He's driving the same car. They've got
With
the
the
same
same
mixtape
mixtape. Yeah.
in the car.
Yeah.
I think we all know someone kind of like that.
That's always in the past?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't I was trying to think about this too, because this was actually a question that I was gonna ask you. I don't know if I know anyone like that anymore, because I think I had stopped hanging out with them because they were like that, you know? So it's hard for me to be like, "Oh, yeah, like, who was that person?"
Hmm.
I'm sure that there were, but now it's like, I'm so far removed from it, where it's like, I don't know. Like, I have nostalgia for certain things, of course, but they were like cultural moments, you know?
Yeah.
Uh,
Well,
I
I
don't
mean,
know.
just
It's
just in
interesting.
a separate, friend circle kind of way. I don't think or it's just based on our conversations, it doesn't sound like you hang out with as many people that you used to know that I do. Because I do still
No,
hang
I
out
don't.
with quite a few people that I knew back in the day, and there's certain people that I've definitely cut out of the circle for whatever reasons, but you still kind of hear about them
Yes.
in ways
Yes.
where kind of become that cautionary tale where they're you know acting like they're 20s and doing things and like getting themselves into trouble and drinking and like
Yeah.
choosing that showing up drunk to work over being responsible parents because they have children and shit like that, and you're like, yeah, that's why I don't have any use for you, or whatever.
Right. Even that, like finding someone who's irresponsible, right? I think is like pretty hard now for me. It sounds like I'm like, oh, well, my friends are so great, but it's like there's certain. I'm a firm believer of like, just in general, like the people you keep around you are going to influence you, right? So it's like I tend to want people around that like, you know, share the similar share similar ideals as I do, So I'm stumped, to be honest with you, of like thinking of like, oh yeah, who's that one person like now? Like I don't know anymore.
Hmm.
It's hard, but I can say that like if this were to happen to me, I don't think I'd get in the car. I think I'd be like, no, I'm good. I think I'd be like, so I'd have an aversion to this whole idea of getting the band back together, so to speak, to like go out on tour and get shit faced.
Hmm.
I don't know. Because it's like if I think, okay, like mental exercise, I think of like who would I call that I'd like want to hang out with from like a long time ago. Yeah, it's like I do want to hang out with these people outside of what?
Oh, me, I might be
I
one of
don't know
them.
what you're doing. I don't know what you're
You're
doing.
thinking of people you might want to hang out from a while ago. I'm one of those people.
Well, we've never lost touch with each other though,
Yeah.
Like uh if we didn't talk for years, I think that would you might be one of those people.
It might give you a little bit of pause where it's like, hey, let's okay.
Right. But like you wouldn't be in that category of people that are just acquaintances now,
Hmm.
like when I say I'm so far removed, it's not that it's like just a time thing, right? It's like personality wise, like I don't know who these people would be anymore today, and
Right.
my memory of these people is fading, you know? It's so long ago that it's hard to even like perceive these people that I had spent so much time with, that sounds so weird to say it like that.
Yeah, but
And
I get
it's
it.
kind of
I get it
sad,
though. I
right?
I get it though cuz I was at a friend's wedding and there was a bunch of high school people there, and I was hanging out with the couple people that I knew from college who I had talked to within the last 10
Yeah.
years. And, I went over to the high school people and just kind of, made the rounds and said hello. And then I got so much shit from one of them. Like, oh, you too good
For
to
real?
blah, blah, blah. Oh, fuck yeah. And, I'm just sitting there like, I haven't talked to you in like fucking 20 years. Like,
Yeah.
I don't, you don't know who I am anymore. I don't know. Like, I don't need this
Yeah,
shit.
we're kind of
Maybe
different
that's why
now.
I'm over here talking to them. Yeah, I just came over to say hello, and you're breaking my balls for
Yeah.
no reason.
Or that they're
Um,
remembering some slight you gave them 20 years ago, right?
or just
Like,
now at this wedding apparently, but
right. Like, we're going to bring all this up. We're going to air our grievances because no one can hold grudges for 20. Like, what are we doing?
yeah,
Like, I don't know. That's ballsy, man. To come
yeah.
up to you at like someone else's wedding and like, oh, you're too good to talk. Yeah, I am. I'm not going to start now. See you later.
I mean, and that just
Like,
reinforces it, but there
yeah,
there are those people though where like you think back on them and it's like, oh, you know what, they were fun. I wonder what happened to them. Nothing good.
yeah, yeah.
Some of them. Or you just knew that they were going to be trouble. Like they were fun in the moment when you're kids and you're invincible, but then like you look back on it and it's just like
Yeah, I don't want to be
that
around you.
story didn't end well.
I don't need the police up in my shit. Like I got my own stuff going on. I don't need you to help me out with this
Right.
other stuff. I don't need that type of help.
But at the same time, I think that's what makes Gary King a fascinating character, right? Is because like you were living large in that moment where you're kids and you feel like you're invincible, but at the same time, you know, you just feel like you're too big to fail, and then hey, here's reality, and nobody cares because you're not special once you get
Right.
outside of those high school circumstances. So you can I feel like he's relatable in that aspect of like not wanting, because it's kind of like there's the child thing where like you don't want to put childish things away when all your friends are trying to act adult when you're teenagers, but then, maybe you get to that point when you're teenagers, but you can't let go of that when everybody moves into adulthood. And I think
Mm,
that's kind of like
yeah.
that next level, arrested development, where it could have happened at that prior stage, but it didn't for whatever reason, and he just got stuck right there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what it is. Uh, I guess what my question to you is, if you didn't know how, okay, first, how old or what's the years of time passage? I guess it would be 20. That said this was like 1999, right? Or was
This
it
did.
before that? Yeah, the movie.
Uh-huh.
So that would make them like where we're at with in our lives. Like
Oh
we would
no,
be
they were
returning.
like 1990, because they're like 10 years older than us.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's even worse. That actually helps this argument. So it seems like Nick Frost and Simon Pegg's character, like they haven't spoken much since that car accident at all, right?
Right.
This is my only issue with this movie is right now is that the convincing someone to hang just say we didn't talk for 20 years and I just showed up and was like, "Do you want to go on a road trip with me?" Showed up to your home or your office or wherever you're at. We haven't spoken 20 years because of something bad, right? Not even we just lost contact, but something like bad happened. I would imagine that it would take a large effort on my part and a lot of convincing to move you to come with me, right?
Mm-hmm.
This movie does it effortlessly, where it's like, I don't believe that, yeah, it's a comedy, but like, I don't think that any one of them would get in that car to go back to New Haven to go on a pub crawl, you know? It's unrealistic a little bit. Bad things happen, and I don't think a 5-minute conversation in someone's office is gonna convince someone that, like, you need to rekindle a friendship with this person, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, okay, without getting into specific things, like, that there is some shit that I had to go through with people I knew, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think any of that stuff holds a candle to what uh Gary King did to Nick Frost's character?
I mean, not to the other characters, but for him. And I think because it's a movie and for pacing reasons, that's why they pull the whole, my
We're
mom
just gonna
died card, and then he pays him back the money that he always owed him, as a sign of like, I'm responsible now, even though you find out that he just borrowed the money from the other characters on the trip to pay him
right.
back, because it's this all like game of manipulation there, you know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so yeah, the manipulation thing, still going back to that, like, that's a frustrating thing. I
Yeah, there are those people though where like, at least this has happened to me a couple of times, where it's like I've sworn him off, I'm never going to deal with him again, and then a year goes by, and you pick up the phone or you run into him and you're hanging out and you're like, oh, this isn't so bad, but after like 15 minutes it's like, nope, there it is. Maybe that hasn't happened to you, but that's happened to me a couple of times.
no,
But I also give people the benefit of the doubt a lot.
I think that they're
It's not that I'm gullible, but your brain doesn't remember pain. Like if you've ever gotten punched in the face, you can't remember what that feels like, other than I didn't like it. Let's not do that again. But you can't remember that feeling. So there are those kind of emotional traps that we can walk into without, really meaning to.
emotional traps. I don't know. I want to touch back. Like, I think that I would have given people second chances when I was younger about this type of personality. Like, oh yeah, well, water under the bridge type of thing. You know, I don't know if I could do that now, because it's I think those people around, like, if you have those people around you, like, that manipulation rears its ugly head, and I just don't trust that type of person, you know. So I think it would be really hard, uh, like what you said, where it's like you would let people back in, or like, you know, like, oh, we can build upon this or something. Yeah, I don't know, man. I think I'm pretty like I think I guard myself pretty well against those people, which is going back, like, once again, why I have a huge problem with Simon Pegg's character in this movie. You
Hmm.
know, I like him as a character, but that person fleshed out in reality kind of sucks.
Yeah, they're no
So,
good.
yeah, no, not at all.
You know, the other thing too about this movie that I don't think I really appreciated was that it is that kind of like you can go home, but home's not quite as good as you remember it.
Yeah,
You know, in this case, there just happens to be this sort of like alien invasion going on.
right.
So it's not just, you know, nostalgia goggles of like, oh, you know, this is kind of, hey, the bar that we went into is kind of been overtaken by a Starbucks. It's
There's definitely that happens. That happened to me like a couple weekends ago. So, but oh my god, I'm so
a
sorry.
bar that you like's been overtaken by Starbucks.
Well, no, 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 not Starbucks specifically, but it's like Big B coffee. You know, they're everywhere. It's like hard for other. It's a Michigan chain. Big B coffee is, but it's hard for other like chains like Dunkin' Donuts or uh Starbucks to get a foothold in Michigan because of the massive amount of Big B coffee stores. But it's like that now has taken over so many mom and pop coffee shops, right? So it's like even one that I managed at or worked at is now a Big B coffee shop, you know, where it's like, oh, okay, you know, I guess it's still coffee, but it's just not the same, you know.
Oh no,
So
is it that one that we filmed at?
yeah, yeah,
Oh wow.
yeah. So it's a
Well,
Big B, yeah.
well, we'll always have that magical August day with the
Right.
with the ice cream machine ruining the audio in every take because we couldn't unplug it.
Right. Well, can't really, can't really unplug that type of stuff,
Yeah,
right?
no, it's kind of
Not
essential.
not stuff that's going to be served to people, you
No,
know,
no,
so that has milk in it.
yeah.
um, but let's talk about the movie as a whole. I think that this is one of those uh um my god, I thought about this movie. Now I can't think of the name. The Body Snatchers, right? Invasion of the
Okay,
Body Snatchers.
yeah.
Um, I feel like this is one of those types of movies, but does it in a unique way where you don't think that it's a body snatcher movie. You know?
Well, it doesn't get
Uh,
weird until it's like 40 minutes into it.
yeah. Well, what was the weird part for you? Like,
When they
yeah.
start punching the heads off robots and
Well, right, but
because you don't know that
specifically,
anything
what was the
sinister is
scene?
going on. Well, I
Yeah.
mean, that was it. They get into a fight with a robot, and you know, like you don't know that anything is really sinister because it does seem like this kind of like guys' night out kind of
Yeah.
turn weird sideways thing. But none of that starts to rear its head. I mean, you get little things where like the you know almost in the version of the Wicker Man you didn't watch because I that episode was hilarious because I watched the original
I
because I
don't know
couldn't
what we're talking
find
about. What are we referencing again?
because I couldn't find the Nick Cage Wicker Man right away. I thought it was on
Okay.
Shutter, and I started watching the original one, and
Oh, that's right.
I kind of got like hooked into that one, so I just watched the whole thing. There are those little things where like people are kind of like glancing at the outside characters, but it doesn't really become full on sinister until the fight in the bathroom, and then the other characters come in, and then they wind up getting in their own fights, and like, oh no, there is something really crazy going on, and then everybody's in on it, everybody's watching them, and that's when it's full on, like you said, kind of, invasion of the body snatchers. But you don't know what's going on until about 40. I looked at that too. Like, I made a point to, like, at what point does this social science, social sci-fi aspect raise its head? It's like 39, 40 minutes. It's like right there.
That's that's pretty good to get into a story 40 minutes in and you're still kind of guessing, you know. Um
Well, I
that's pretty
think I think
impressive.
you're just building it up, that they really want you to be along for the ride with these characters, so that when they do get kind of picked off here and there, it means something a little bit more. And I think that in a script writing sense, someone would probably tell, like, your professor in screenwriting class would probably tell you that that's wrong, because all of this needs to happen at the start of your second act or something like that. But we're well into act two out of a 3-act structure before that stuff really starts to come up. It's pretty unconventional in that sense, in a storytelling pacing kind of sense.
The network as the villain to me is something that's really interesting, because you kind of see this thing where it's like alien technology is used with our current technology, and that's how we got a microwave or something like that. You've
Hmm.
seen this type of thing in movies like Independence Day. Resurgence did this thing where it's like, yeah, we just used all the technology and aliens and put them on our F-14 fighters, you know. But we never deal with like that technology if it's alien being taken away from us, right? And that's the interesting thing about this movie that I think makes it not a body snatchers movie, even though it grabs heavily, steals heavily from that idea. Like, the computer at the end was like, fine, I'll leave you to your own devices, right? But what's funny about that is that's like a colloquial term to I'll leave you alone to fail, is usually what that means. Like, oh, you aren't going to take my advice. Fine. I'll leave you to your own devices. But that damn computer said that with a literal connotation to it. Like, I'm
The
literally going to
devices.
take the devices, meaning technology. Like, I'm literally going to leave you with the devices you made, not my devices that I made for you, you know? Uh, so that's what caused the world to end, was not, the destruction of this one thing, like the computer blowing up New Haven, but it was the thing taking away all of its devices, leaving your devices left. you know,
Yeah.
that's pretty clever, you know.
Well, there was like an EMP blast that went out from, I guess it started there because they were kind of like at ground zero, and then they somehow outran that with a car, which I'm pretty sure is impossible. So, did they just give us all electronic everything, like all back through
Yeah,
the
that seems
war?
like it.
That's the
Yeah.
implication.
Yeah, because they were talking about how that there was some sort of uh, Basil, when he was talking, it seemed like there was some sort of event that happened in the 90s, and then that's when this technology, this alien technology, which was like a smartphone or a microchip, was introduced to the world,
Okay.
was because of that event. So, and then ever since then, it's like, oh, suddenly we have this new birth of technology, which just so happens to map on like the microchip, you know? So,
It was the Y2K. It was out to get us the whole time.
right. So yeah, I don't know, like that, to ponder what it would be like if technology, smartphones, interconnectivity, the internet, all of that, Bluetooth, if it was suddenly just taken away from us, yeah, that would cause the end of the world. Like you would know your community and that's it. Like you
Hmm.
wouldn't know anything outside of you. So
It would take you
it's
back
kind
to
of
the Dark
crazy.
Ages, which it does.
Hmm.
And then you have Nick Frost, saying people don't, or everybody knows where they were at the day that the what the lights went out or something. I forget what the exact quote is, but then nobody knows what happened to Gary King, and he's out running around with the younger cyborg versions of himself
Which
and the old gang.
I know it's supposed to be uplifting once again, like, oh, Gary's doing adventure Gary things,
Hmm.
like it's just out in the wasteland having adventures, causing trouble. But then it's like, oh, but it's his young friends of reliving the glory days still
Yeah.
with his posse of people. It's depressing again,
Well, yeah.
to me.
Well, he's the only person this is a happy ending for, and I don't know
Yeah.
why he deserves the happy ending because he's kind of we've said he's kind of the bad guy of the film. Um, especially early on in a lot of the ways because of the ways that he's pressuring and manipulating his friends. But society didn't work out for him. You're told you got all the promise in the world, and you're going to do great things, and then those great things just don't happen, and then you're just kind of left holding the bag. Like, well, I believed everyone,
Right.
like the hype of myself or whatever, and there's a whole thing about suicide in there. Did you catch that? That the group
Yeah.
that he was in the beginning, because like he's having a wrestle with Nick Frost there, and you see that he's got like the bandages on the arm, and his hospital band is still on. You're like, oh, wait a minute, like he tried to kill himself, and they told me when to go to bed. Me, like it's this whole problem with authority thing. Um, but he's really the only person this story worked out for because everyone else moved on and he hadn't. And the only reason that he kind of comes back into it is because society, the
Right.
society that kept him from moving on, crumbles. So he thrives in that situation. So it's yeah, no, it's a little, it leaves you feeling a little strange afterwards.
Yeah. It like the first time that I saw this, I was like, I know this ending is supposed to be uplifting, but I can't help but feel more depressed about this character, because it's not that he's having adventures that's the depressing thing. It's specifically that like he hasn't found his new group to be a part of. It's still the old group, the Glory Days group, you know.
Who are literally facsimiles of people that he used to know.
Yes. Yeah. And that's the depressing thing. All of that together. I
There
would love it
is
if Gary found a group, found the people that like he wants to continue like to have a relationship with. But the fact that they're just shells of people that he used to know is just like, man,
literally, yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah, there's something really weird and profound there, and I don't quite have the fortune cookie wisdom in me right now to put that
right.
together.
No, I
Um,
can't articulate it right now either, but seeing it all together is kind of like that. Don't go in that dark area. There's danger there.
yeah,
It's kind of like this undefinable thing that's like, oh, that's not good. Not what I wanted. Not what I would
yeah.
have wanted to see.
Well, and it's such an unusual story in that regard as well, and I feel like that's a big part of the reason why the first time I saw it, I didn't really know how to make heads or tails of it, and I was just kind of neutral to it. Um, not to go back down that hole, but like it really does feel you could leave you conflicted because it doesn't work out for any of the people that you feel like it should work out for, and it works out for the one guy who it probably shouldn't work out for. And, you know, at the end of it, it's like we're kind of left with this, well, you know, we had some fun, but what do we really make of this kind of a thing? Where would you rate this? Where would you rate this in, like, so Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz? I'm thinking you're gonna put Hot Fuzz on top
I
out of the
really like Hot Fuzz. I think
It's a
it's
good
better than
one.
Shaun of the Dead, but I think this is better than Shaun of the Dead as well. Yeah, so I put it I put it second. Yeah. God, this you know, it's like we could get a lot by with like the audio version, right? Like I can mute myself and I can cough like into a muted microphone and no one would know the difference until I calm down. But this like video quality thing really fucks that whole shit up where it's like you could just see me trying to stifle a cough or run away from the camera because I'm coughing so loud and I can't hit the goddamn mute button. You know, it's like it's insane. Like, and sorry to like go off in this tangent. We're supposed to be talking about this movie, but it's like this is painful for me. Like this is so bad. But yeah, I put World's End second, or yes, World's End second and Hot Fuzz first. Shaun of the Dead
I think I
last.
do too, but not for the same reasons. I used to really like Shaun of the Dead. I still like Shaun of the Dead. I don't think it handles whatever its identity is quite as even-handedly as Hot Fuzz and World's End do, and I think that's the only reason I put both of those above Shaun of the Dead, even though I really do enjoy Shaun of the Dead. Everybody, I remember when that came out, and everyone was like, "Yeah, it's really good until the thing with the mom happens," and it's like, "Oh, wait a minute, you mean when it actually becomes a zombie movie?" You know,
Yeah,
and there's a real human toll. It's not just having a laugh and whatnot. Um, but because of that, that's why I say I think this one handles its identity better. And I think Hot Fuzz is, it's, to me, I do think it's probably like the top of the three, but I do still like them all for different reasons. But having said that, we're not going to belabor this. Mr. Matt's dying over there.
it's bad.
It's okay. Say no more. Thanks for listening. We'll check in again next week with a Christmas episode this time, our yearly Christmas episode, and we'll see you next time. There were three of them. And like, how many grenades do we got? Three to a man. Okay, use them all.
Yeah, throw them all in there.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's such a long time where it's like it's almost comical, but you know it's not. Like they're just like, this is so suspenseful, guys. He's like, we're shooting this thing and he's barely escaping death, but it's like everyone else is like, don't these things explode in like 2 seconds? Like as soon as the little clip handlebar thing flies off, like that's it, right? Like you gotta throw it or your hand's gonna not be there, right?
I think you've got 2 seconds, I want to say.